Hello everyone, my name is Cooper Seals, and I chose to talk about the economic thinker Henry George. Henry George was born on September 2nd, 1839. He was born during the Progressive Era in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He is known as a land reformer and economist who proposed in his book, Progress and Poverty, that the state tax should get rid of all economic rent, which is the income from the use of bare land, but not from improvements on the land. Also, he was a supporter of abolishing all other taxes. This radical piece of writing is what brought him into the limelight. It electrified reformers, brought him fame, and began a worldwide movement for land reform and taxation. He uses his new power to pursue a career in radical politics. Henry George used ethics, union, and socialist backing to form the United Labor Party. He used this party to run for the mayor of New York in 1886 and nearly won. George is best known today for his work, Progress and Poverty, which quickly became and remains the all-time bestseller on economic theory and policy. Inside, he defined the problem as an increase of what with an increase of wealth. He attributed low wages and unemployment to artificial scarcity of land and barriers to free exchange. This artificial scarcity was a result from the unequal dispensation of public lands. George proposed to raise the ad valorem property tax rate on bare land, which would socialize rent without excess burden. He wanted to remove all other taxes, calling them barriers to commerce, employment, and capital formation. Using the ad valorem tax would move the land market as a whole, which would force land into full use. The release of hoarded lands would open up the possibility of wider opportunities for labor and man-made capital. His main concern was labor, but he saw capital mainly as a form of labor, produced by labor, completed by labor. There was no such thing as a payroll tax in this era, so capital and commerce were the things that George sought to untax for the benefit of labor. George created a program that would level barriers to exchange, specialization, production, and synergy. This would include spatial barriers forced by land speculation, which is the scattered settlement and urban sprawl. Fiscal barriers like excise and wage taxes, and social barriers from unequal wealth and contempt from workmanship, which he traced back to the influence of privilege and unearned wealth. George was a believer in this true free trade and that it would bring technological, scientific, cultural, and spiritual development in a more egalitarian and moral society organized around a perfected market mechanism. George was a system-minded man and sought to unify the laws of production and distribution in a coordinated, harmonious system. He wanted radical redistribution without revolution. He was the one who pioneered the idea of taxation, when properly crafted, can redistribute wealth without damage to the market. Being an optimist, George promised full employment at higher wages by unlocking natural opportunities. Needed capital would be formed in the same process of making jobs. Social synergy would produce a surplus that spills over into higher land rents. This spillover is what the government could use in lieu of taxes that penalize and abort useful activity. George was a pioneer of tax limitation, insisting that land rent set an upper limit on government spending. His blend of radicalism and conservatism can confuse some people, but the system he created is internally consistent and defies conventional stereotypes. He died on October 29th, 1897, at the age of 58.